Yeah, I know it was not, it's last minute, but I was also a bit shocked because they normally never used to want this. Ne? So I think it's because Prof. Naika is the new vice dean, so she probably has her own way of, going about things. Ne? Okay, but what I just want you to guys to say on Monday, okay, and you can say that when you guys were doing the abstract, I helped you to just refine it. And from my experience, I know that when you submit an abstract there, they always want preliminary findings. Ne? Okay. Preliminary findings, you would have seen that the abstract, that last part that says the study found that, or, so because otherwise then they see it as it's incomplete. Ne? Okay. So I just thought looking at your different assignments and just looking across, what could be generic, ne? Okay. So please, you're still going to do your interviews, ne? Okay. And even in that, just on Monday when she asks you, just say you've started with your interview data collection so that she doesn't panic and be like stressed out. Okay. And you've started collecting your interviews. Then you just say, this last part, I just want to jump to the last slide, the finding slides, before I take you through the rest. Ne? Then you say, as a group, so you must explain to her that you are doing the research topic as a group, but everybody's writing their own drafts. Ne? Okay, so the literature review, I literally just took from your different assignments, just trying to see what did you say that's important, what did you say that's important, to come up with those six subtopics, the themes that you'll explain. Ne? Okay, so just explain to her that you have the topic as a group, but everybody writes on their own. So, example, with the findings, you need to include excerpts. Ne? Excerpts is what will be on the actual transcript. So, it will be the actual words that students said. So, if we look at this theme, for example, limited confidence in implementing inclusive practices independently, the excerpt could be something like, I don't feel comfortable teaching, using inclusive practices all the time, or I know some of them, but I'm just not sure how to go about it. Ne? That could be an example of what your participant says. Okay, so you would include that in that blue box. Ne? Okay, so if she asks you, why don't you have your excerpts from your data yet? Then you just say you were all just, you're busy with your data analysis and collection. Okay, so this is something that once everybody has finished, then you're going to choose the most, the strongest excerpts from your data sets. Ne? So if you have a very strong excerpt, let's say Muso, you have a strong excerpt for this particular theme, ne? Then we'll take an excerpt from your study. If Yusuf, you have a very strong excerpt for theme two, then we take from your interview transcript. Okay, so just say that you're in the process of finalizing that. Ne? Okay, and then that should be concluded soon. Okay, you can also tell her that that assignment is due on the 11th of September. Then you'll get feedback from me as soon as possible so that you can have your final findings for the competition. Okay, ne? Are you guys following me? Does it make sense? You can just do a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay. Uh, all right. It's fine. Cool. So, gents, this is the structure of the presentation. Usually, when you present right from the what you started with in the beginning, and then what you ended up with at the end. Okay. So, on the day before, maybe on Monday, you might decide who is going to do which part. Ne? So, even on the day of the competition, let's say if you start the presentation, Cabello, maybe you do the first two slides. Then maybe you do the introduction and then you do the aim and the objectives. Okay. So we'll still have a face-to-face session before the competition, and then you guys can present. I'll give you tips on what to do, because you only have 15 minutes. Ne? Okay. The whole presentation is 15 minutes. So that's why you must practice even your example. So let's say, Kabelo, you start, you read this introduction and background, and then you give one or two examples. Okay. It's important to think about those beforehand. Ne? Okay. Because if you try and improvise too much on the day, then you're going to take more time, and then you find that they cut you your 15 minutes and you haven't even shown your findings. No? Okay, the findings are the most important part of the presentation. Okay, that last bit, that's the most important part. That's what people want to know. So what did you guys actually find? Okay, so I just gave you broad themes, and please, if your themes do change, please don't be scared to change them. Okay, I just suggested these ones having looked at your different assignments, the previous two assignments. Okay, ne? So those can change. Ne? Okay. Then you also highlight the aim and objective. And again, here it's the generic aim. So don't panic if maybe yours is slightly different. I just looked at the research topic as it is and say, what is a suitable aim? What are suitable objectives for all of you? And the question as well. Ne? Okay, so in your individual assignments, it may look slightly different, but this one is for the presentation. Ne? Okay, then somebody else would present the slides on this one. Then we have the literature review section. Okay, now here in the literature review, you're not reading, like, in your assignment you had like the big paragraphs and stuff. Ne? So again, here I looked at your different assignments and I tried to see, okay, what were the common themes that you all discussed? Ne? Okay, and see from that. So one of the first one, linguistic diversity, language barriers, something that was common. You might not have all the themes in your individual one, but I was just looking across the six of you, all your assignments. What is a common pattern? Okay. So again, somebody who does the literature review, you can choose one at the next person to present the section, and you just read the topic, you read the sentence, you may give an example, which is always good. Like this one. Look at number 2. Learners who are not proficient in their language of learning and teaching may struggle to understand and engage meaningfully in the classroom. A very nice example is to say that this is the case when children are not learning in their home language, especially in the foundation phase. Okay, because if they're learning in a language that's not their home language, they can struggle if they're not taught correctly. Okay, so you could bring in an example as you explain. Ne? But what's key, think about the example you want to use beforehand. Ne? Okay. Then here's another part, the next theme, number 3, inclusive education requires blah, blah, blah. And please, guys, if you really want to change anything, you're more than welcome to. Okay. Don't feel pressured that we have to leave it like this. Okay. We just don't want the slide to be too wordy and too much text. No? Okay. Then the last literature review themes. Um, ooh, I would remove this one. Ne? You guys have the slides. Ne? Please remove that many ne? On number 5. Okay, yeah. Student teachers feel. Okay, or rather the preparation. Okay. Oh no, I don't like this one. It's a nice one, but it doesn't read as nice as I thought. Student teachers feel inadequately prepared and lack confidence in multilingual teaching context. Okay, think about it. If you like it, keep it. If you don't like it, you can check it out. Ne? Okay, are you guys still following me? Yes, no? Okay. So if you really strongly feel strongly about a theme, you can keep it. If not, you can take it out. Ne? Okay. Then the research design. Ooh, guys, this is very important. Ne? A lot of you in your own individual assignments. Now, here it's just a collect, you coming to one agreement. Don't feel that, ma'am, now I did practitioner research, or I did a case study, or I did this. No? Okay. I just left it as a generic qualitative approach. Okay. I didn't include whether it's a case study or this because you all had different ones. No? but all of you are doing qualitative research. Okay, so a generic qualitative research design, it's just understanding people's experiences, understanding their perceptions. Ne? Okay, so you are still investigating what they're doing, okay, but it's not framed whether it's a case study or a practitioner research or action research. Okay, it's just about understanding people's views, their experiences, their feelings. Okay, so I thought, let me just simplify it for the sake of the presentation, just keep it at a generic qualitative design. Ne? Okay, are you guys fine with that? Okay, yes, no? You guys can unmute. I want to hear your voices. Oh my God. It's like I'm
Yes,
talking
we're fine.
alone. Okay, all right.
Yes.
So just be mindful because it's a presentation. Sometimes, people might feel like, man, but I did this one. Yes, in your respective individual reports, yes, you keep it like that. Okay. Data collection. Here we just explained the first part is just a sentence that shows that in qualitative research, these are the kinds of in data collection methods that can be used. They allow the researcher to gain first-hand information. Okay, uh, so something like this here, we chose to use to adopt to collect data through semi. Oh, you can leave it even if it's the original way. Okay. We collected data. No, let me leave it the original way. Sorry, let me not confuse you. Okay. Ne? So data was collected through semi-structured interviews about student teachers preparedness, blah blah blah. Okay. Now look at here. I said here your sample is 12. Ne? Now, you will decide on the day when you actually present, this might change, ne? But I worked on it out an average of if you each interview two people, then you'll have a sample of 12 collectively. Ne? Okay. And the population sample is the people who you actually collected data from. And then the population, now this is the group, the entire group ne, in that cohort. Okay. So in your fourth year cohort, there are 187 of you. You are a population of 187 students, and you sampled 12. Ne? Okay. So, and you sample these students purposefully. Now you can decide. We advocate in your chapter 3, you must, that's one of the questions, ne? Are you going to sample purposefully or are you going to sample randomly? Randomly, if you just choose people anyhow, okay? But purposefully, if you purposely ask people to um, participate in your study. Okay, so I thought it's common in most qualitative studies to use purposeful sampling. Okay, you can use random sampling, but it's usually with quantitative studies. Ne? Okay, so I would highly suggest purposeful there. Okay, so I hope that distinction between the sample and the population also makes sense. Okay. Now, guys, why I asked you if any of you had started your chapter 3 and 4 assignment is because these concepts are actually from the assignment. Ne? So, from slide number 8 to 9, 10, and so forth, it's stuff from the assignment that you should be busy with now. Okay? Ne? So, I want you to go read this theory up. Ne? Okay. Thematic analysis. You can even, there's a nice video on YouTube. Ne? The authors are Victoria Braun and Victoria Clark. Ne? Um, they actually made thematic analysis very popular. And thematic analysis, all it is, it's we identify, we categorize our data to form themes. Ne? Okay, so it works in these steps. Ne? And in your slides, please, please, please go through the slides that I put up on thematic analysis. It's the last slides, I think, on Moodle. There's ones on data collection and analysis. Ne? Okay, these steps are in the slides. Ne? Okay, how do we analyze our data? So you need to explain to Prof. Naika on Monday that The first part of data, or whoever is going to present the slide, would explain that the first part of collecting data, you conduct your actual interviews. Ne? Okay, does that make sense? Ne? So even in the slide, there's guidelines on how do you conduct the interviews, what must you do, and so forth. Ne? Okay. Then the next step is you transcribe the interview. Transcribing the interview, now when you conduct the interview, you must record it. Ne? Step one. Step two, now you listen to this recording and you type it out verbatim, meaning word for word. Ne? Okay. Even on the slide, I put an example of how does an interview transcript look like. Ne? Okay. Then once you've transcribed your interview, you code the transcript. Okay. Now this one with coding the transcript, let me actually open it. Now you underline the things that the participants said. Coding the transcript is about finding the meaningful parts in what the participants said. Okay. So you don't code what you say. You ask the questions as the researcher. You don't code what you say. You only code what the participant says. Okay. And it's not like coding and robotics coding. Okay. All this way of coding is it means that I give an interpretation. So if my participant said something like this, né? Teaching in classrooms using inclusive strategies is difficult, né? Okay. Or when I teach, I struggle to accommodate all the learners' diverse needs. Okay. So a code that I would assign to that would be students struggle to address learners' diverse needs. Okay, that's my interpretation. Okay, it's a short sentence that gives an interpretation of, oh, this is the transcript and this is the code. I just want to go to that slide. Please go through it. It is on Moodle, ne? But I want to show you how a code looks like. Okay, let me just unshare this one and then share that particular one. Because if you get this, it won't, it's actually, this is actually a very easy assignment. Okay. So you must just follow the steps. If you follow those steps, you'll see how analyzing data is quite easy. Okay. Can you see that screen? Okay. Do you see the new one? Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
no?
We
Okay,
can.
cool. So look at an example. Now, this is what a transcript would look like. Ne? Okay, a transcript, this is where I type. So on the left line, I include line numbers. Ne? Okay, now these ones are not very nice. It must be for each line. Ne? Okay, not skip a space in between. Okay, then in the middle, I have my transcript. Now, this is the actual interview. Okay. So I asked the person, so, and that's me. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, what do you consider important about mathematics teaching? Now, this was a study I did on maths teaching. So S1, student one said, I think as a teacher, you should know what maths is and what it's about before you teach it to children. You must know what you're going to teach. Ne? Okay. So do you see that I underlined parts there in what the student said? Can you see that? Ne?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So those parts that I underlined, that's what I found important in what this person said. So I then create my code in the next column. Ne? So you can do this on a Word document. Just create a table with 3 columns, ne, and 2 rows. Okay. Then I say, okay, based on what this person said, they say you must know what math is. So you must have content knowledge. What you're going to teach about, that's content knowledge. And you must know what you're going to teach. Ne? So what I make from that is that the student says content knowledge is important for developing your PCK. Ne? That's my code. Ne? Okay. So a code is your interpretation of what the person has said. Ne? Does that make sense? Yes, no? Okay. Ne? So this is what your whole transcript. So you do what you have a transcript for your first participant, then you interview the next person, you have a transcript for that participant. Ne? Okay. Make sense? Okay, I think you guys can unmute yourself so that
Yes,
I don't
that
feel
makes
like
sense.
I'm talking alone. Okay. All right. So, um, that's what you can. I just want now. I want to share my whole screen so that I can move between these things more swiftly. Okay. So that's an example of a transcript. Ne? Transcribing the interview. Then we go to coding. I will show you now. Coding the transcript is exactly what I showed you here when you come up with your interpretation of what the participants have said. Okay. Then step number 4, you organize these codes. Now, because you're going to ask your participants the same questions, ne? Okay, so there will be patterns, ne? Okay, so organizing the codes in the slide, when you go to the slide, here's the slide, organizing the codes. So I must label each code, ne? P1, participant 1, line 169 to 117, and then I have the code. So it's advisable to first have your codes, maybe all of your codes like this, ne? Okay, before you sort them into groups, ne? Okay, so you have your codes from your transcript. There's your transcript. So this code is in it's student 1 line 2 to 3, ne? So I would type it like that on another Word document. Okay, some people prefer to write it out by hand neatly. It's up to you, but I think it's faster to just type it out. Okay, now we're gonna group the codes. Ne? Okay. When you're grouping the codes, you look for patterns. Ne? Okay. So you're actually looking for codes that have similar meaning. So a code like content knowledge is important. Knowing what you're going to teach is important. Those codes are essentially the same thing. Ne? So we group these codes. I normally prefer mind maps. And when we group the codes, like in this slide, we give the code a name. So we give the mind map a name. So the name of this mind map is called the value. It's even there in red. The value of exposure to different mentor teachers during the practicum. Okay. So all these codes that you see pasted here, they talk about student teachers' views about having different mentor teachers when they are at the practicum. Ne? How does that add value to their teaching? Ne? Okay, then I go to my next group. Now I have another category, the importance of mathematical content knowledge. Ne? Remember, my first code was around that. So every code, every instant where the students mentioned the importance of content knowledge, knowing what you're going to teach, knowing your maths content, all those codes, I now group them into another category. Ne? And I give that category a name, the importance of mathematical content knowledge. Ne? Okay, so that's how you form your categories. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then you refine your categories, step 5. Okay, so step 5, refining your categories. Now that you have your different mind maps, ne? Say you came up with 4 or 5 or however many mind maps. In this study, I think I had about 6 mind maps. Okay, now I want to refine these categories to form my themes. Okay, so I take the category names. Ne? Okay, so now I'm only working with these. You see these ones in red, the names of the categories, the ones that are in the middle, ne? Okay, of the mind map. Okay, so when you define categories, if you have 4 categories, for example, ne? You're gonna want to reduce those categories. We form to refine these by analyzing the relationship. Can I actually link category 1 and 7 to form a new category? Okay, so here blah blah blah. Let's use this one, the importance of teaching aids, mathematics content knowledge. This can form a new category. Okay, the use of teaching aids in development of why did I write bad there? Okay, the development of mathematical content knowledge. Okay, so I would do that. Then I go to another category. Okay, here's my other category, the value of exposure to different mentor teachers and the importance of teaching aids. That forms a new category. Okay, so I would eventually here end up with like 2 or 3 themes that lead me to my final category. Okay, then I can further refine these categories to form my themes. Okay, but if it's here, it's still fine. Okay, so we're actually here, number 5. So what I was showing you was refining the categories. You are taking your mind map names to form the final themes. Okay, and then here, please just note it on your side. Okay, it doesn't have to be, yeah, presenting the themes for the discussion. Okay, because you actually don't have to include that. Presenting the themes for the discussion. Okay, just note it on your side as well. But you'll have, I'll send you guys the recording. Ne? Okay, then this is the last step. Okay, so this part of the slide, now I took long here because I am teaching it to you. Ne? Okay, if you are presenting it, you won't actually take this long, ne? Because you'll have your data to show, ne? Your findings. Okay, so but you just explained, we transcribed the interview, made sure that we transcribe it verbatim. We coded our transcripts by analyzing what the participants said. Thereafter, we grouped our categories, our codes to form provisional categories, your mind maps, and we did this through mind maps. Okay, maybe you might want to add another slide here with an example of a mind map from one of your studies, and then we refine these mind maps to form final categories that we are going to discuss in the next slide. Okay, then here, these are the themes. These themes are essentially these what comes from number 6. Ne? Okay, so if you agree on 3 themes, usually in qualitative research, you start off with the big data and you reduce it as you go with each step. Okay, so in most, with such a small sample, 3 themes are more than enough. Ne? You don't need more than 3 themes. Okay, so theme 1 could be this. Guys, you are free to change the names of the themes. Okay, these are merely suggestions. I didn't analyze the data, so I can't say this is an exact finding. Okay, you are going to analyze your transcript. You might come up with another theme. Okay, but this is just for Monday, just for the presentation. Then you say these are the preliminary findings because not everyone has finished yet, but so far this is what has emerged. Ne? Okay, so the overarching preliminary findings, you can even add preliminary findings if you want. This is what comes up so far. And what comes here is the excerpt. Now, the excerpt, you don't take it from the mind map, you take it from the actual transcript. Ne? The excerpt is this: you take what the student actually said, you copy that. So if you want to say, as a teacher, you need to identify how different learners learn mathematics. Ne? That's the excerpt you want to use. You copy that sentence and you put it in this box and you say, student 1, line 10 to 13 said, as a teacher, it's important you identify different blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? Are you
Yes.
still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Then
Yes.
somebody else could present the findings, and then the next part in any study, you will do this when you do your assignment 5, the last one, but you must have a limitations in, and you can already identify limitations. Even you don't need to wait for chapter 5 to be submitted. Okay, limitations of the study. Limitation is something that it limits what you could have found. Ne? So for example, I suggested these 3: limited sample size. A small sample size means that your findings can be generalized to all student teachers or in all South African contexts. Ne? Okay, self-reported data, it's with qualitative studies because people are expressing their experiences and perceptions. Okay, it may not always be factual data. Okay, but you decide if you want to keep this one or you want to check it out. Ne? Okay, then lack of classroom observations, I added that as well, that because you are not observing how the student teachers teach. That also affects, what versus what they're saying versus what they're actually doing. Because somebody can say, no, I'm inclusive in my practice, but when you actually observe them, it might be the case, it might not be the case. Okay. So I would suggest whoever is going to do the limitations can do the recommendations as well. Okay. Again, these are suggestions. If you want to change something here, you're more than welcome to. A further recommendation could be that you have the study with a bigger sample size, maybe from other universities, if you want to include that. Future research, I really like this second one, could examine maybe the views of lecturers. Maybe in your sample, you could have interviewed both teachers, lecturers, school management teams, and the students to really see if the students apply inclusive practices. Okay. And another one could look at how will contributes to students' learning and confidence in diverse classroom. Okay. Um, then a conclusion, the study concludes, blah, blah, blah. You can change this if you want, but it's just a generic conclusion. And then you thank people and just have your reference list there as well. Okay. So if you take out anything, just check if it's in the references and then you remove it, or you if you swap anything with anything then you update it as well. Okay, so please on Monday do inform Prof Nika that I will be working with you and guiding you as well once all of you have finalized your data analysis collection and analysis. Okay, so I will be taking you through it. Oh, sorry, can you see this? I put it there but I chucked it out. Okay. um we didn't do a specific theoretical framework in the chapter 2 assignment. Okay, but for the purpose of the assignment, ask her, maybe she might suggest a framework. Okay, but let me just highlight it like that. She might suggest a theoretical framework. We didn't do one in your chapter 2 assignment, and you can say you didn't do one, but if she suggests that you include one for the presentation, then you can, but only if she suggests. If not, then you guys can remove it. Okay, you can remove it from your slide. Okay, because it's not there. No? Okay. All right, gents. That's it from my side. I think for now. Um, is it clear? I want to hear your voices so that I know if we actually achieved what we wanted to achieve. I know it's rushed. I'm sorry again. It's normally how we've never had this before, but I think maybe it's because she wants to do things her way as well. Ne? So usually we only do this presentation maybe like a week before the actual presentation. But just inform Prof. Naka as well that I'll be guiding you through it. We'll have